Hey everybody, it's Erik Torenberg, co-founder, partner of Village Global, a network-driven venture firm. And this is Venture Stories, a podcast covering topics relating to tech and business with world-leading experts. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Village Global Venture Stories. I'm here today joined by a very special guest, Village Global Portfolio CEO, Kevin Gibbon, founder and CEO of Airhouse, and previously founder and CEO of Shyp. Kevin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited.
So Kevin, by way of introduction, why don't you describe what Airhouse is, and then let's talk about the journey of how you came to start it.
Yeah. So what Airhouse is, it's an end-to-end fulfillment solution for e-commerce companies. So specifically if you're creating your own physical product. So after you've set up your online store, after you manufacture your product, how do you get it into your hands of your customers? That's what we really help with. And there are other solutions out there, but what we want to make it as easy as Shopify, a Stripe, name your favorites, AWS. We really want to help entrepreneurs focus on what is unique about their product that they're selling. And really it comes down to two things. It's the product, the need for the products, and your marketing. And so we just want to be that kind of third leg there to really help you get your product in your hands to your customers without having to hire a huge operations team.
Talk about the journey of how you came up with the idea of Airhouse and how it sort of ties to some of the work you were doing at Shyp.
Yeah, so Shyp, for anybody who doesn't know what we did, we started as and we were known as a consumer shipping. It was kind of the Uber for shipping. So you would take out your phone if you wanted to ship something, sell something online, send a gift, send a return back, take a picture of whatever you wanted to ship, tell us where it's going on your phone, request a pickup. We'd show up at the time that we would actually say, and then we'd handle everything. And you could give it to us unpackaged or packaged. And so what we actually did and what we built is we built a full stack solution. So we had we built everything on the technology side internally ourselves. And also we even had our own couriers that would come pick you up. Eventually we had our own vans that would be branded. And we also had our own warehouses that we would lease as well. And the reason we did all of that is because we thought that it needed to be that much better. I'm a really, 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 really big proponent of like your product needs to be 10x better than what anything else is out there. And so the thought process there was that we had to actually control everything for it to actually be that much better of an experience versus having to walk to the UPS store or trying to schedule a pickup with FedEx or UPS or having to package yourself and everything. And that actually turned out to be true. We had a lot of fanfare with Shyp. People loved the product. Consumers loved it. They started shipping more. It was a really great product. But a lot of problems actually, and also we took a lot of VC funding. So we raised $63 million total in funding. We had amazing people that joined the company and also our board. We had world famous investor John Doerr, who was one of one of the first investors in Google and also Amazon, and a number of other ones joined our board, and everybody was really excited. And we were really thinking we were building the next basically Uber for shipping. But a lot of the problems that we ran into was, I think the biggest thing was that we had a really great fit with consumers. And that was awesome. They loved this. They told everybody they knew about us, but the frequency of use just so low, as you can imagine. And I got this criticism early on, and I knew it as well, and the team knew it as well. And our plan was that we were going to go up market, we were going to go to SMBs, we were going to go to mid market, we were going to go to enterprise, and we would build this like core piece that would it's just this shipping hub that we kind of just plug in a bunch of different products. I definitely say for any entrepreneurs that are listening, that is not a good idea. I would say start with what you actually think is going to be the best fit and scale it from there. And so a lot of the problems that we ran into is that we had to have physical locations in every single market. So at our height, we were in 5 different locations. We had over 300 employees. We actually were able to manage that very well. Like even in all of our cities, it was the product was still the same, and we were very, very careful on the quality that we provide for our customers, and that actually did scale. But the problem is that there just wasn't enough. So for us, we had a lot of operational expenses that we had to actually put into a market to launch it. So we had to have a warehouse. We had to have actual physical machinery inside of the warehouse. We had to have a certain amount of staff on board at any given time to be able to provide the level of service that we wanted to actually provide for our customers. And that just really, it costs, and then also marketing and customers and knowing that we exist and all of these things. And so there was just a lot of upfront capital that we needed to invest into it. So looking back at that, I'd say, and we could definitely dig more into this, and this is a very long-winded answer to your question. Looking back at it, I really don't think that it was a VC-backable company the way that we started, just going after consumer. I think we had a great fit, but the market just isn't big enough. And it takes too much capital to really make it profitable in every single market. And so we went through a long journey. We did a couple rounds of layoffs. That was super, super, super tough. We then went down to one market, to San Francisco, so we actually weren't even operationally profitable. Which if you think of any other VC company, like think of a SaaS company that's actually not profitable on the money that they take in from their customers versus their expenses on the technology, that's insane. But that's what we were, and this was in the kind of the height of the remote control of your world, and you could control everything. And there was a lot of venture capital dollars being spent on actual physical infrastructure, and that's not the case anymore, actually. And so we ended up we scaled back, and we wanted to prove out profitability in San Francisco. We actually did that, and that was an awesome milestone the team achieved. And we did a ton of different things, and we built an SMB product, and we were going up market, and it was really working. But at that time, it was just a little, it was just too late. I think we had probably $5 million in the bank at that time. We still had a pretty big team as far as engineering and everything goes, and we had San Francisco operations and everything. And so right into like the end day, trying to raise more capital to make that thing work, we just couldn't make it work. But what came out of that is myself and my co-founder, Sarah, we really saw a really big need for these, call them D2C brands, direct-to-consumer brands. I like to call them digital first brands, because they actually have a lot more channels than just their D2C channel very, very quickly. And we saw a really big need on, after you have a website, you have your marketing. So that could be you built a community somehow. You have your advertising on Instagram, Facebook, you're doing whatever. There's so many different distribution channels out there. And also, once you've either built a small batch of test orders or test products within the US or internationally, you can actually scale and outsource the manufacturing of your products actually very quite efficiently now. There's so many different ways you could do that. And what we saw a really big problem is that once you get those sales and you get all these products manufactured, how do you actually get it into your hands of your customers? And that's really the problem that we saw, and we thought that we could approach it from a technology only solution. And that's kind of the problem, and kind of where and why Airhouse was born.
Totally. Thanks for sharing that. And just to zoom out a bit and just talk about sort of more, founder perspective, lessons learned. Say a bit more about the Shyp experience in terms of generalizable lessons that you think other entrepreneurs listening in can appreciate or learn from.
Yeah, there's so many. So I think that knowing if your business really, I call it deserves. You can use a different word, but I really think it is deserves venture capital money. If you are taking venture capital money, and that's different than angel money. So let's say if you're taking more than $10 million, you need to know that you're going to be able to really scale this thing. At every single round, every investor is looking for a 10x return on their investment. And you need to know that going in, and that's the expectations. And so that was one of the biggest learnings for me, is that at that time, I think we raised our $50 million round in 2015. The market was super hot. We had like so much interest from the best venture capitalists, and we were riding this Uber wave and all of these services that would just come to you physically and all of this stuff, and really not understanding your business, your true business. And this is my second time founding a company. My first time, I'm Canadian from Vancouver, so I started a much smaller company there. That also didn't work. It was a shopping app, and we don't really need to go into that, but raised like 100K or something like that from friends and family. And I think really understanding how is this going to turn into $100 million business. If you're going to be taking VC, if you're taking angel money and you want to create like a nice SaaS product that's going to be making 5 million ARR or something like that, that's fine. And your investor is going to be fine with that. But I think that really knowing that yourself was a really big learning for me, because also that's why you bring people around the table, and that includes employees too. Like I sold people on this was going to be the next Uber, like from investors to employees to advisors to everybody, and really didn't understand, like, for one, we had an amazing fit for the consumer, but then we're going to create another product, and that's going to be the thing that's going to like actually make us to be the next Uber. No, actually what it turned out to be was that SMBs, and also as we got even bigger, they wanted a completely outsourced solution. So how the service worked was we would come to you, we would pick up your stuff every day, and like somebody that's running a business doesn't want that. They want you to like handle the stuff from their supplier, get it into the hands of their customers when they sell, and so they could focus on everything else. And so I think it's really starting with the thing that you think you're going to scale. And if you are taking VC dollars, really understand what that actually does mean, and knowing that you're going to have to return. And if you're successful, if you fail, fine. If you somehow the market changes or whatever, that like this is the whole VC world that we're in. But as an entrepreneur, I think that it seems that it's just so easy to get. It's not easy, but there's just so much capital out there right now. And if you're a smart person and you could sell people on it, you can convince a lot of people to take it. But if you don't really truly believe and understand your business, and that if you are successful, you'll get there, you're going to have problems. Because when you take that much capital on, there's so much pressure from everybody, from your employees, from your obviously investors in the boardrooms, even externally in the press as well. We did a great job of getting a lot of press, but there was just so much pressure. And we just we're not there. And that's not the business that we have the greatest fit for. And we should not, TLDR, we should not have raised that much money. I think that is a huge learning, that when it's it's easier to raise money, that people, and I've actually heard this advice right now, like what we're going through right now with Airhouse, and we could talk about it as well, like COVID, and we should definitely touch on that, like is just accelerated e-commerce into like, I don't know, some people call it 10 years ahead. And like we're powering, and we're kind of like think of us as like the Stripe of
Yeah.
e-commerce, if you kind of want to think. And I have so many investors that have reached out to be like, take all this capital, all this. But I just like, for where we are right now and the traction that we have, which is unbelievable. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say it's not, but like, just know the stage you're at and take the capital that you can actually deploy, and make sure everybody is as happy as possible, and you will have the best outcomes.
Yeah. Let's segue into just sort of how e-commerce and D2C have evolved. Before getting into COVID, just even in the time that you've been in it, 5 years plus, why don't you talk about how you've seen the space evolve and mature, and what opportunities have presented themselves as a result?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that have changed. So I think that the reason there are so many digital first brands today, or even just 10 years ago when they started like first coming out, like thinking about Warby Parker and all of those different brand Caspers and all that, like why did they have success versus the traditional CPG companies that would have all of their R&D and everything inside of these massive companies. I think that the biggest thing actually that changed is distribution. I think that now the internet has really democratized the way that you could reach your customers. So there's so many different channels through Facebook, Instagram, even sharing on messaging. Like that's how I get a lot of the products that I buy online, is through messaging with friends. That was really not a thing before. So I think that has completely changed versus going into like, even before you buy things on the internet, like going before and you just browse the aisles to see what you want. And that meant as a brand, you'd have to sell into a buyer and convince them and all of these things. And then you had the marketplace models, you had the eBays and the Amazons and everything, that they're great, obviously. But I think that now you're able to create a brand that can reach people directly. And then also the other very important thing is that you can manufacture stuff. You don't have to have that internally. You could outsource all of your manufacturing, and it's really not that difficult. There's like 3D printing you could have for prototypes, and you could try it on your friends or whatever you're doing, or have a small batch run of some clothing brand, or there's so many different things you could do. And then the other thing is that you don't need to have an engineering team to build a lot of these things. So I think that's the major advantage that Amazon and eBay had initially, is that you could go online, you could enter a credit card, and you could buy something on there. Now there's so many other platforms. There's Shopify, there's BigCommerce, there's WooCommerce, there's all of these different platforms that you don't even need to have an engineering team for. So I think that's the really big change in e-commerce today. And then COVID that's just changed it, because people don't want to leave their house.
Totally. Let's get into COVID in particular, and what that means for sort of the medium term as COVID ends at some point.
Yeah, it has to, right?
Hope so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that what it's done to e-commerce, I think that it's just accelerated everything, and I think that it's for one, it's forced people to buy things more online. So I think that there's going to be a very short spike of just massive activity and people buying everything online, whether that's through Instacart, whether that's through your favorite D2C brand online, whether that's through anything. But I think more importantly, and I think the thing that is actually going to stay, is that it's going to get a lot of those people that never bought things online to be like, oh, this is actually pretty convenient. And I think post-COVID, hopefully that's very shortly, that e-commerce is just going to have accelerated so much, because you brought so many of these people that never would have even considered buying things online, that now have been forced to do it. And now it actually is a more convenient way to shop.
Totally. what are the lessons we learned from the first wave of D2C brands? And as you, if you put your VC hat on,
Yeah.
how do you sort of evaluate, what D2C brands or what, subspaces are more likely to be successful versus others in a venture context?
So I predict that there's going to be this extreme long tail of like sub $20 million brands that are extremely profitable. And that's actually our goal at Airhouse. Like I want to be able to power like a single entrepreneur to have a $20 million brand themselves and outsourcing absolutely everything. And we're handling this one major piece for them. But I think that if you look back at kind of the first generation of these D2C brands that took a lot of VC dollars in, there are exceptions. Like I hear Warby Parker is actually doing extremely well, and they take a lot of VC dollars. But there was a lot of other ones that took a lot of VC dollars in. They were thinking that they were tech companies, wouldn't get tech multiples, and I think that if I do put my VC hat on, which I actually do not invest, and that's a rule of mine, I have a singular focus. And that's building one thing at a time, and that's Airhouse right now. But I think that a lot of VCs and also the entrepreneurs as well, and I take it even back to kind of my experiences with Shyp, that like you don't truly understand your business and what the actual opportunity is. Like a D2C brand, the defensibility that you have is not the same as a traditional technology company. If you think of somebody like a Facebook or any sort of company that has network effects, you don't have that. No D2C company has network effects at all, because you have a competitor. They come out and actually just copy exactly what you've done. And so what I think you're going to have happen is you're going to have a lot less. You're still going to have a lot of, like, I think a lot of seed and maybe Series A investments going into D2C brands. Obviously, there are exceptions, especially if the technology is crazy, hard to build, and you have a physical product. But I think that the way that the brands are going to be built is just so much different. So I think you're just going to have this very long tail of these these very, very profitable companies, because everything's outsourced and you don't need a lot of these things. You don't need the infrastructure. You don't need all of these things. Of course, there are going to be exceptions. So like the Apples of the world, like you have a device and then you have an ecosystem and you have all these things. Of course, there's going to be exceptions to that. Or if the tech is very, very, very hard, what's an example? Like I've heard 8 Sleep. I'm not sure if you know who they are. They're a mattress company. You know who they are?
Yep.
Yeah. So they claim that it's a bed and they can actually automatically know exactly the temperature that makes you go to sleep and better and all these things. Like I don't know if that's like very defensible. My first thought is it is defensible for a couple of years, but then somebody else is going to come in and replicate it. And so I think that there's just going to be this very, very long tail of these D2C companies that outsource everything. And there's just going to be a ton of them. And that also, I would say that these brands will not be selling through the marketplaces. I think that is very clear, that these brands will not be selling on Amazon. These brands will be going directly to consumer through their own websites, and they'll be shared through all these different channels. They could acquire customers, hopefully profitably, through Facebook or Instagram or whatever new thing comes out. So I think that's going to be the next generation. And the previous generation was just took a ton of capital, and they were really just treated like tech companies, and they're really not. The defensibility just really isn't there.
And how should we think about to what extent brand is defensible, or what separates the brands that defensibility is sort of a spectrum, the ones that are more enduring versus the ones that are less enduring, or or other important criteria, make or break criteria of that will make a DTC brand successful?
I think long term, it has to be network effects. So anything that has a network that you just can't, like, thoughts that come to mind would be like Peloton. I don't know if that's like initially. I think they have a few year head start, but I think there's going to be other, and I know there are other competitors that they have. But are all your friends on there? Do you want to be on there? Do you want to, like, so Peloton is the bike cycling company at home. I think that definitely is something that's like defensible, but I haven't seen like a DTC company that has the same defensibility that you would say like a Facebook or a Twitter or like a typical tech investment has. So I think that there still is going to be a ton of venture capital that's going to be invested, but I think it's going to be in the early rounds. And I think that there's a ton of money to be made, though. I think that do you know RX Bar?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did they sell? They sold for like 500 million or something like that.
Yep.
I actually don't think they took any venture capital, but like if you were like a Series A investor in that company, it's like a home run. That's amazing. So like I think that the days of raising like $250 million for this D2C company that like is just amazing at customer acquisition and has like a really great product. I think those days are over because somebody else is going to come in and they're going to copy it and they're going to do it smarter probably and cheaper and all of those different things. So I think that's a major thing that's changed.
Yeah. Talk about how hard it is to get a DTC brand off the ground and how Airhouse makes it easier.
It really depends on what kind of DTC company you're looking to build. So if you're looking to build something that's just a hobby, that's different. And I think that you should talk to your friends or whatever people are going to be using your product and make sure you like validate it and then build it and then build it in low quantities. Make sure you're not spending too much money in inventory and probably do all of the fulfillment, shipping yourself. You use a company like Shopify if you're selling online and all those different things. I think that if you have like a bigger idea, you're taking venture capital, you're looking to really scale this. I think there's a lot of different tools from the beginning that you should look to use. And I personally think you should outsource absolutely everything except for your product and marketing. That's your unique thing if you're looking to build something big. So there's obviously hire the best marketers you have. Hopefully you yourself as a founder are an amazing marketer. I would think that's kind of baked into probably a lot of the most successful D2C brands. I think the most important thing is having a unique product that solves some need for somebody. And I'm actually a huge fan of Shark Tank. I'm kind of addicted to it. And I watch it in the background all the time because I love all those entrepreneurs that come up with all these like crazy things that you never even think for this like segment of this market that maybe could be big or could not be big. So I think it really comes down to the product and the marketing, and then outsource absolutely everything that you possibly can. And so to go back to your question, how hard is it? I think it's really hard. It's very, very hard. I think that entrepreneurship in general, whatever you're doing, is a fucking grind. It is so hard. There's so many ups and downs you're going to go through. Early on, you're going to have you realize you have this thing that somebody wants, and you're just, oh my God, this will be the next whatever, and you're so excited. And then you kind of go through like the downs of like, oh, this is really hard to do. And I would say that any advice that I would have for any D2C entrepreneur is try to, for one, stay the course. If you think that you have something that people actually want and is unique, that is a very, very important thing. Very against not against everybody. Do whatever you want to do to make money, but like the way that I think, like as I mentioned early on in the podcast, like I'm really passionate about building something 10 times better than whatever else exists out there. So I would say to anybody who's looking to build their own brand, their own physical product, to make it 10 times better than anything else. And if you know you could do that, and you know you have some unique knowledge or unique whatever, that's really, really important. And then just outsource everything else. And where Airhouse fits in is that once you are ready to start, either you take venture capital money on, it could be as little as $100K, whatever it is. You're not looking for this to be a hobby, and you're not looking to ship this out of your garage forever. Look to outsource it to us. So you're plugged for Airhouse. We don't do any minimum. So you can ship us as much as little as you want. We turn a process that takes typically, if you want to work with a warehouse. So in the industry, it's called a 3PL, third-party logistics. So what they do is that it's basically a warehouse that you ship your products to, and then as they sell, they'll ship them out to you. But it's a very, very old industry, and it's the technology. It's like based in some of it's based in the 80s. It's really hard for the modern entrepreneur to really use, and also you don't know who to use, and that's kind of where we come in. So if you know you want to scale something, you've manufactured your stuff, come to us. We'll turn a process that takes typically up to 6 months sometimes. That you're probably going to have to hire an operations manager to actually understand how to work with a lot of these different warehouses. We turn that into same day onboarding. We turn that into, we'll sync with your Shopify store or whatever, wherever you sell on, or your wholesale, wherever you're selling on. We'll make it really easy. We'll actually match you with the best warehouse based on your product, which actually is a really, really big thing that people don't realize. Like, not every warehouse can do an apparel company that has 2,000 to 3,000 SKUs, or a company that has very unique marketing requirements, or even custom packaging. A lot of these warehouses don't do that. And so with us, we know exactly, just enter in the information with us. We already have so many of the brands that are using us. We know exactly who to pair you with. And then we just make everything just kind of work. So as items are selling, they just go out. We update tracking information on wherever you're selling. And then there's a lot of things that we have planned in the future. But what we want to actually really enable is outsourcing that operations piece in your team. And that starts from a company that is looking to scale. So early on, looking to scale, maybe you haven't taken on any venture capital. Maybe you just have something that's really taken off, and you don't want to continue. We've even had people had 10 part-time people that are labeling things and packing things in their office or their house or whatever. You should not be doing that. That's a waste of your time. Don't you have to manage those people and everything. Just don't do that. Outsource that. And so we see people that we could do that, but also we want to actually enable the kind of the mid-market brand too. So we've actually seen a lot of our customers that we can really just give more leverage to. So instead of you having to have an operations team that, and at scale, it's actually, they're huge. If you look at a company like a Casper or whatever, it's half of their team away luggage, which is a bad example now because they're not doing that well, unfortunately, probably due to COVID. But half their team is dedicated to getting stuff to their customers. And so what we're even seeing early on is that we just give so much leverage to these companies, and those are the products also that we're going to be building as we continue to scale. We want to basically take what the best operations teams in the world, whatever they do, we will do that for you, and then we have this network of different 3PLs, so warehouses. Today we're US only, but we'll be expanding shortly to other countries as well. that you don't need to take a chance on. You don't need to have a up to 6 month onboarding process and then realize that this warehouse is not meeting your demands or anything. We can switch you right away if things are not working because you only use our platform once. And so we have this like two-sided, like the network effect. And we actually, and this is such an overused term in the VC world, we actually do have a network effect because the more customers we have, the more partners we have. And so we know, for one, where to pair the brands with the partners, and then it just strengthens the whole network, which is really, really valuable. And that's something that no individual brand, I don't care who you are, even today, I'd say for any brand that's doing less than $20 million in sales, there's no way your operations team could do what we're doing today. Nor should it actually be focused on it. And we could actually give you more leverage, even an operations team, to focus on all of the other things. So today, a lot of the stuff that we don't do, inventory forecasting and demand planning, which I would argue is one of the biggest reasons that a lot of these brands go out of business. They don't know exactly how much to order from the supplier. And that's like, in these D2C brands, what they have is they have a negative cash flow cycle. So they have to put up the capital first before they make the sales. And so we're working with brands and giving them best practices. And this is not a product we have today, but it's really just what we suggest to them. You should really, like, the best brands in the world are the ones that have the shortest amount of cash to their suppliers. And know, and it's all data based, how much that you should be ordering. We've seen brands that have years of inventory based on their sales, that they just thought that their product was going to take off. And so working with somebody like us, we really want to be your outsourced operations arm of your company. And those are the things that we can really help from inception for anybody who's really looking to grow to, I'd say today, mid-market, but then we want to continue to expand to larger, like 100 million, 200 million, 500 million brands eventually. That's kind of the eventual vision of the business.
But you mentioned, Kevin, that a lot of these D2C brands won't go through the marketplaces. Why not? Why wouldn't they just use Amazon or the others?
Yeah, so I think that for selling, I think that Amazon, I'd say that these brands should sell on Amazon if you are a category leader. So if you have the cheapest batteries, you should go on there. There's actually been, I can't remember the name of the company. There was a very, very cheap company, a cheap camera company. It was like $20 for just like a camera you put around your house, and it came from people who were at Amazon, and they made it, and it went straight up to the top of the list. You searched household camera and went straight up. So like that's the reason you should sell on Amazon. The reason that you should not use the Amazon fulfillment services, so FBA for anybody who knows that, is really the lack of customization. So for one, they really don't work at all with direct-to-consumer sales channels at all. So, like, if you want to, good luck trying to use FBA to get it into your hands of your customers that you sold on Shopify or ecommerce or whoever. But also, I think that what we offer, and why also a lot of these 3PLs and warehouses exist, and why we're creating this network of them, is that there's a lot of customization that goes into every single brand. It's stuff like market material that may rotate. A lot of warehouses actually cannot handle that at all. It's things like returns. Sounds simple enough. A lot of warehouses cannot handle it at all. It's things like the selling so many different SKUs, like just the makeup of the warehouse. They literally just don't have like the actual racks that are configured to do all those things. And I know all of these different things from building Shyp, and we built our own warehouse and our own software and all of these different things you need to have. And also there's a lot of things that we're working on as well that go into returns, for example. Like why does your today, if you go to a lot of most DTC brands, like why are you emailing somebody like to get a return? You're saying you want to return something, they're sending back your label, and that's just wasting what you now as a brand need to manage a lot of those different things. And so what we actually see is that there's a ton of customization that a lot of these brands want, and it's not a one size fits all at all for any of these brands. And so that's what we're really building. We're really building the ability that you don't need to focus a lot on this, and also we'll give your operations teams and also so we deal with engineering teams as well. We also have an API that you could punch stuff into if that's what you want to do. We have a lot of custom things. And so I think that's what we've really also seen. And I think that's like the next generation of e-commerce, because for you to stand out as a brand, you need to differentiate yourself. And the way people receive it, the emails they receive, the return mechanisms, all these different things are how you really stand out. And I think that this next generation of retail, that's going to be even more important. And so that's what we're trying to help all these different entrepreneurs power.
Totally. That's a great place to wrap. For people who want to learn more about Airhouse or follow your work more broadly, where can you point them to?
Airhouse.io.
Awesome. Great, Kevin. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a great episode.
Yeah, thanks so much, Erik.
If you're an early stage entrepreneur, we'd love to hear from you. Check us out at villageglobal.vc.